Hello, I'm Henry, and I read a book. I read this book, Sharpe's Tiger by Bernard Cornwell, and I would like to talk about it, please. The Sharpe series is a mildly iconic set of books, made more iconic by Sean Bean's portrayal of the titular character in the Sharpe television series that first aired back in 1993. Sean Bean's portrayal was so good, in fact, that Bernard Cornwell himself changed aspects of the character to better reflect the actor in books and editions that came out after the series started airing, giving Sharpe a more northern-based backstory to reflect Sean Bean's accent and giving Sharpe Sean Bean's lighter hair. It's a pretty unique instance of reverse adaptation. The series itself follows Richard Sharpe, a soldier in the British military knocking about at the turn of the 19th century. His exploits, his adventures, his journey up the ranks. A remarkable journey up the ranks because he is a poor working class boy, not a stuck-up officer toff. A classic snobs versus slobs story. And where does that story start? Well, based on the release dates of the books, it starts in 1809, already a third of the way through. What? Yeah, the order the books came out in is not the same as the order of the chronological events of the story. The first book released, Sharpe's Eagle, is actually the 8th in the timeline, and the first book in the timeline, Sharpe's Tiger, is the 16th book released. Confused? Same, but don't worry about that. From the title of the video, you know now what we're looking at and where we're starting. Sharpe's Tiger, the beginning of Sharpe's story. Sharpe's origin story. Real quick though, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video, I'm just going to give you my thoughts on the book. First thing, the physical book itself, at least the version I have. It's kind of cool, very pulpy. It's got like a mini blurb on the front. I don't think I've seen anything like that before. It's got a description of the main battle of the book up here at the top, like a subtitle. It says, be prepared for scenes of great action and heroics in massive letters on the back, which is a little embarrassing on the train. And at the top of the spine, I'm not sure if you can see that, it has the year the book takes place. And let me tell you, I have never been more affected by 4 tiny numbers before. Just these being here makes me desperately want to get every single book in the set and have them all in line and all in order, even though I probably won't read any of them because I don't think I like this book, or let's say it's not for me. It's told in third person omniscient or unlimited, meaning the POV sort of jumps around between characters and even becomes unattached at times if wider information is necessary. And I think that hurts it. If it was told in third person limited or first person limited to just Sharpe, it would go so hard because he is awesome. Everything he does is awesome, and he is surrounded by a really strong and colourful cast of supporting characters, but that's all surrounded by this swampy duvet of artillery placements and troop formations and battle strategies, pages and pages of entrenchments and musket operation and orders being issued and orders being passed around. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just way too much for me. But if you're into that type of thing, you need to get this book as fast as you can. Though something I really did enjoy is the use of the word canon as the plural for canon, not cannons. I just really like that. The book's also got a map too, and who doesn't love a good map? Map. I know I love a good map, especially when I remember it's there. I'll tell you what would have been really embarrassing is if I forgot that the map was there and then thought to myself during the extensive battle plan scenes, I could really do with a map right now. But obviously that didn't happen. The book is also historical fiction, something I have a fun relationship with, and despite the Sicilian incident, it completely blindsided me again. Clearly, I learned nothing from anything. The battle in this book actually happened, and I kind of assumed that much. But all the generals and officers in it are all also real? That's weird, isn't it? It feels a bit weird writing dialogue that didn't happen for people who did exist. Not out of respect or anything, not like a how dare you put words in their mouth type of thing. It just feels odd to me. I think if I were in Bernard Cornwell's shoes, I would have made up a bunch of fake generals and officers and had them in the story and maybe had the real ones mentioned, but in the background, not actually as characters in the book. Is this just me? Is this just a hang-up I have to get over? Probably. Okay, moving on. For about 4 million years, it was the rule. You couldn't make a superhero movie without telling that hero's origin first. And that's the logical thing. Obviously, you need to see how these people became the way they are, how they got their powers, how they got their mindset, how they got their morals. It's crucial to understanding them. But when you've seen Uncle Ben get capped twice, you don't need to see it again. They're slowly being phased out of popular culture. Or maybe they're just building what they already have with sequels instead of introducing new characters. Just looking at the MCU, I think the last movie solely dedicated to telling a traditional superhero origin story was probably Shang-Chi. Relatively normal guy, gets powers and abilities, gets wrapped up in abnormal situations, saves the day and comes out of it a hero. Solid. Shang-Chi came out in 2021. So for a while now, they've been dropping in super characters without dedicating entire movies to explaining why they are the way they are. Maybe they're side characters, maybe their backstory is vague and mysterious and would detract from the character if explained. Maybe pop culture knows their backstory so well we don't need it again. Regardless, even if they are being slowly phased out, I've been around long enough and I've seen enough superhero origin stories to realize that I'm experiencing one when I am experiencing one. Why am I talking about this? Because Richard Sharpe is a superhero and Sharpe's Tiger is a superhero origin story. Let me show you. Let's compare this book, structure, element, and story-wise, to the quintessential superhero origin story, Catwoman. We're not doing Catwoman. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man from 2002. Let's start with our heroes, Richard Sharpe and Peter Parker, and how they are at their beginnings. Wait, isn't Peter Parker's dad called Richard? Peter Parker is clearly a grown man posing as a child, but we're not talking about that. Peter Parker is a lame, unpopular nerd who commands no respect from anyone around him. He has one friend and no game. But that doesn't mean he's got nothing going for him. He's smart, he's a genius in fact, and he's got a good sense of right and wrong. Sharpe is a crude, moody murderer, yes, murderer, who can't read or write. But Sharpe also has a few things going for him. He's big, quick-witted, very capable at practical things, decent despite being a murderer, with street smarts for days. They're basically the same person if you squint. The point is, they're both starting at a similar state, with things they can do very well compared to the people around them, but with room to grow and improve and change. Okay, so that's how they start, but how do they change? What do they learn? And what are they at the end? Well, Peter Parker gets bitten by a radioactive spider and gets spider powers. That's how he changes, that's his catalyst. And that's actually the real reason I used Spider-Man as the example here, because Sharpe too gets bitten by a radioactive spider and he gets spider powers. He's out there in the Napoleonic Wars doing flips and sticking to walls and shooting webs. It's weird. No, but seriously, there isn't really a pinpoint catalyst for Sharpe's change into a hero as dramatic as Spider-Man's. What he does get is a super secret mission. He leaves the army to go undercover in an enemy city to save a Scottish person. This is his spider bite moment. And yes, you might just call this the inciting incident, and that nearly every single story ever has one of those. And you'd be right, but what makes this more of a superhero moment is the power it gives him that he didn't have before. Sharpe gets this mission from the highest up guys and supersedes everything else from his sergeants and his other officers, who he can now tell to just do one. It allows him to break free from the restraints of the army and do whatever he wants, really. It lets him make serious, impactful decisions that affect the lives of thousands of people. It even lets him talk a madness to one officer in particular. It truly is an empowering moment. So that's how they change. What do they learn? Well, Peter Parker learns something about responsibility, I think. I think they just nicked the moral of the story from the Rugrats movie that came out a couple years before. Sharpe learns where his loyalties lie, who and what he fights for, and his responsibility to those things. Responsibility? Yeah, responsibility. Genuinely. Not forcing this. Sharpe, in his secret mission, is given great amounts of power and by extension, great amounts of responsibility. He is given a real opportunity to desert, abandon his country and comrades and live a really comfortable life in India. But he doesn't. He stays loyal. He stays resolute and he saves a lot of lives. So we've done where they start, how they change, and what they learn. Let's look at where they end up. Peter Parker ends up, after deeds of great heroism, as Spider-Man, fully formed and ready to fight an octopus guy. Sharpe ends, after deeds of great heroism, promoted to Sergeant, which not only installs him in a permanent position of superior power to what he started with, like Spider-Man, but also a slightly different uniform. A super suit, if you will. Okay, so what's a superhero without a love interest? Peter Parker has Mary Jane Watson. Sharpe has Mary Bickerstaff. And what's a superhero love interest without a bit of tragedy? It's like the qualifying thing. In Spider-Man, the tragedy is he can't be with Mary Jane at the end, despite the two of them clearly being in love with each other. This tragedy is somewhat undercut by every single thing that happens in all the movies after this, but in a vacuum, there is an element of tragedy here. In Sharpe's Tiger, the tragedy is Sharpe loses his love. And I don't mean she dies, she just casually falls in love with another bloke. Tragic. Sharpe takes it really well though, I should say. He even says, easy come, easy go. So fair play to him on that. Okay, what else do superheroes have? They've got villains. And in an origin story, the villain tends to challenge the superhero's core belief, or will embody their inner conflict, or will embody the opposite of the theme of the story. A dark reflection, you could say. Or, if you're the MCU, a very literal reflection. But we aren't talking about the MCU, we're talking about simpler times. The Green Goblin. Not talking about his appearance in No Way Home, just Spider-Man 2002. He's insane. The goblin juice made him go insane. So it's hard to get a handle on his ideals because he doesn't really have any. He gives Spidey a speech about heroism on that rooftop, like he's got this great insight to the minds of the people. Like, obviously he's evil. The world made him evil. People brought him down. And it's only a matter of time before they bring Spidey down too. But he really just made himself evil. And he goes on to use his power and tech not to prove a point about heroism, but to go and right personal wrongs and turn a bunch of people into skeletons. But this is fine for us. Both these things, the things the Goblin says and the things he actually does, are both good challenges to Spider-Man's moral alignment. His musings on heroism give something for Spider-Man to prove wrong. Like, Peter Parker believes correctly that the world isn't solely out to bring him down, that the innocent people of the world are worth saving, that he can be their hero. Baby. And then Gobby's mad rampaging shows Spider-Man what he can be if he uses his powers for personal gain. Like, really, he can do whatever he wants in the world, and who's gonna stop him? But he doesn't, because if he did go down that path, he'd end up where the Goblin is now. Mental, violent, and evil. So does Sharpe have a Green Goblin? Does Sharpe have a villain that challenges him on multiple moral and thematic levels? No. He's got two that challenge him on one level each. It works out to the same thing. The first antagonist is Obadiah Hakeswill. This guy is such a brilliant character. He's completely mental, one of the most intentionally hateable characters I've ever experienced, and supernatural, maybe? Seriously, there's definitely something going on with this guy. Like, he's like immortal or a demon, or maybe he's like a tangible ghost or something. It's really weird. I love it. He's Sharpe's sergeant, and he abuses that power maliciously. He gets Sharpe framed, he gets Sharpe flogged, he kills one of the nice officers in a battle, and then he blows Sharpe's cover when the latter's secret mission is well underway. From what I described of the Green Goblin, it should be obvious what Hakeswill represents to Sharpe. He is what Sharpe could be if he lets his newfound power corrupt him, but he does not. He doesn't become a bitter, hate-filled wretch. He uses his position to help the people he is loyal to. The other antagonist is the Tipu of my shore. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I should have looked before I started recording. The ruler of the city being attacked in the book's main battle and the location of Sharpe's secret mission. Sharpe doesn't really have too many interactions with this guy. They move in different circles, with one constantly being surrounded by jewels and luxury, and the other one honestly spending the majority of his screen time bleeding. But for our arguments here, we just care about what the Tipu represents. Promise. The promise of a better life if Sharpe betrays his comrades and joins the enemy. Which is also the path of least resistance, I should say. It would be infinitely easier for Sharpe to opt for a better life, do a big betrayal, and side with the Tipu. Just like it would be easier for Peter Parker to side with the Goblin. But neither of them do. Because they're heroes. Let's count it off. Sharpe starts in a powerless position, gains power, and through it, learns he should help people with it despite dangers to himself, ends in a position elevated above his starting position in a fancy suit, has a tragic love, and classic moral challenging villains. Sharpe's Tiger is a superhero origin story, and Richard Sharpe is a superhero at the end. I said it earlier, but it even says so on the back. Also, the last line name drops the title. Just like Spider-Man. Sharpe's Tiger came out in 1997. The baseline superhero origin story, I don't think was established until the end of the MCU's Phase 1 in 2012. That's when the world really got its eye in, if you know what I mean. That makes this book 15 years ahead of its time. Not bad, Mr. Cornwell, not bad. Wait, no. Everyone hates superhero origin stories, don't they? They've been done to death and everybody hates them. It was all your fault, Mr. Cornwell. It was all your fault.
Hello, hope you had a good Christmas and a good New Year's. It's a bit weird, I'm recording this a week before Christmas for a video that's going to go out a week after Christmas, so it's all a bit of a confusing situation. 2024 should be a good year. It will certainly be one where the Earth goes round the sun. Like and subscribe.